This is the Motorola Moto G Power 2026 disassembly. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified once I upload a new video. Also, if you need any tools, there are links in the description. As always, we'll start off by removing the SIM tray. Taking a look at the SIM and microSD tray, we can see a black rubber gasket around the opening. At this point, heat needs to be applied to the backplate using either a hairdryer or a heat gun to loosen up the adhesive underneath, and then a pry tool can be used to pry the backplate off. I prefer to use a hairdryer since there's less of a chance of damaging any of the components inside by overheating them. Here's a look at the vegan leather backplate. The LED flashboard is located here, and one thing I don't like about designs which have the flashboard on the backplate is that if you ever take the backplate apart or if you apply a new backplate, and the adhesive isn't holding the backplate properly to the phone, this board won't make a proper connection with the contacts on the main board, which won't give it any power or signal, and the flash won't work. Looking at the camera lens, those can be replaced by applying heat and prying them off, so you don't have to take apart the phone to replace those. Also, this one is made to look like a camera lens, however it's just a cover for the flicker sensor. They just do it this way for aesthetic purposes to make the design more pleasing. It's not a fake camera since there is actually a sensor which sits behind it, however it is designed to look like a camera lens. There are now 18 Phillips screws which need to be removed. Looking at the plastic motherboard cover, we see antenna lines drawn which are the light gray color lines, the NFC antenna, as well as the flicker sensor. There's also graphite film to help transfer heat. Here's a look at the other side. There's copper tape over the shields on the motherboard to help transfer heat, which needs to be lifted off the cables in order to be able to disconnect the cables. The battery cable can now be disconnected, followed by the rest of the cables. The coaxial cables on the bottom right side of the board can be disconnected by just popping them off. Looking at the main board, we see the 50 megapixel primary camera and the 8 megapixel ultra wide lens. The main camera has OIS or optical image stabilization. There's a secondary microphone on the top and a liquid damage indicator sticker, which is that white sticker. As previously mentioned, there's also copper tape over the shields to help transfer heat. The proximity and ambient light sensor is located on the other side, and we have a look at the 32 megapixel front facing camera. There's also graphite film, copper tape, and thermal paste over the shields to help transfer heat. Once the graphite film and copper tape have been peeled back, we see additional thermal paste on top of the RAM and processor. We can now also see the SIM and microSD reader. Here's a better look with the thermal paste cleaned off. Now when it comes to prying off the battery, there are no pull pouches or pull tabs provided to help you pry it off, so you'll need to use some isopropyl alcohol and apply it to the sides of the battery, and let it sit for about 30 seconds to a minute so it eats away at the adhesive underneath, making it easier to pry it off. So this is the battery. It has a rated capacity of 5,100 mAh and a typical capacity of 5,200 mAh. Generally, most batteries have the typical capacity also written on the battery, but this one doesn't. Also, they use a crazy amount of adhesive underneath the battery, and the adhesive is really strong, so it's going to take a lot of isopropyl alcohol to help you pry this battery off. I really don't know why they're using so much adhesive on this battery. Looking at the speaker assembly, we see additional graphite film over it to help transfer heat. And here's the speaker itself. So we can see this flex cable which connects the main board to the subboard, and the flex cable for the screen which is routed through an opening in the mid-frame. If you needed to replace the screen, you'd have to remove the back plate. The screws on the top motherboard cover and the cover itself, giving you access to the cables. You then disconnect the battery cable and the screen cable, pry the battery off. Apply heat to the front side of the phone where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath. Pry the old screen off. Apply new adhesive and reapply the new screen, making sure you run the flex cable back to the opening in the mid-frame, and reassemble the phone. Looking at the subboard, we see a red rubber gasket around the charger port, and the primary microphone is located underneath this covered shield. There's also another liquid damage indicator sticker next to the microphone. Here's a look at the other side. The headphone jack is located on the bottom corner, which is also held down with some adhesive, and the same goes for the vibrator motor. There's also an antenna board located on this corner, which is seated next to the speaker assembly. Now on this phone, if you're to accidentally insert a SIM ejector tool in the wrong hole, you wouldn't need to worry since both the filters and the microphones are seated above the holes, so they wouldn't get damaged. There is also a rubber gasket and a mesh filter over the speaker opening on the frame. Now the flex cable for the power button and fingerprint scanner, as well as the volume keys, are routed through openings in the mid-frame, which is a design I really don't like, since if you need to replace either of those, you would also have to pry the screen off, which poses a high chance of damaging a working screen. As for the earpiece speaker, it's located on top, which is also held down with some adhesive. For the repairability score on this phone, I give it a 5 out of 10. Now it's time to put the phone back together. Once everything's back in place, apply new adhesive and reapply the back cover. Flip over the phone, power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.